Hi, Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode, I speak to Charlie Valher from ValorMedia.com, CharlieValor.com, and OutsourcingAngels.com. And if you haven't heard of Charlie yet, he's in many of my first episodes, and he's very experienced in buying, building, and selling online businesses. He's bought multiple, and he's growing multiple at the moment as well. It's such a large team. We talk about in this episode our top 5 best things that we've learned through 2019 on how to buy and build websites. We talk about things like evergreen, investing for the long term. We talk about different quotes from very successful business investors. And there's so many things that you don't want to miss out on in this episode if you're looking at buying a website business and growing it. So go away, check it out. So many golden nuggets, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Buying Online Business podcast, and welcome back, Charlie. Thank you so much for coming on, and you're back on by popular demand, actually. So thank you.
Well, my return was inevitable. This is, the people have asked. They've demanded my return to this show, and who am I to let them down?
That's great, and it's good. So thank you for sharing your time with us and coming back on.
That's my absolute pleasure. And it's always nice when someone sends you a message and says, it still lights me up when someone says, hey, I listened to the podcast. I really enjoyed that episode. And I was like, oh, yeah, come on now.
Yeah, you add so much value, and that's why we add you on for so often. So this one, we've got even more value. We're talking about our top 5 favorite things that we learned this year in buying and building websites, which is exciting.
Pardon me, but great topic. It took me a while to come up with these. I spent some time thinking about it when you put the title out there, and I know you have as well. I'm very excited to see what's on your list, Jared, because it's been a huge year for you, and I believe quite a successful one. So these points should be very relevant to the listeners of this show.
Yeah, massive year. And what normally happens every single year is I reflect back and I try and see, all right, where am I now and what did I achieve last year and how can I get more growth? And throughout 2019, my growth through what I'm doing and personally has just gone above and beyond. So let's get stuck in, I guess. You start. Let's see what you got first on yours.
All right, I've got my list here. I'm looking at it right now, and I'm going to start with one that I think is inevitable, but is just absolutely, how can I put this? The returns on this alone would merit my entire year. One of the things I've just put so much more value on is the idea of spending more time with people who are doing a similar thing. So for me, I've always spent a lot of time with business owners since I've been in business, but now really narrowing that down to people who are doing similar things as me, or in this case, building sites or working on online businesses, and the conversations and back and forth. And honestly, I call it the insurance policy. When something's not working, the ability to ask people who have maybe gone through it or can help me solve it has just allowed me to go so much faster. Where previously, if I didn't have these people to ask, we would spend so much time and money just trying to work things out that could be done so much more quickly. So my number one, spending more time with people who are doing a similar thing or trying to achieve a similar thing.
Yeah, I love that you call it kind of like an insurance policy. It's so true. And I see that it does supersede people's growth, because what I've noticed just in the Bob community is that when people jump in, they've never bought a website before, and they see everybody ask the same questions that they actually have, but they may have forgot to ask them. And when somebody starts, it's like, if you can knock off those, then your growth can get answers to those ones. Your growth can just go, hockey stick growth. And there's some people that come in with just some of the most amazing first timer questions as well. And that's because they're hanging around with those people that are in that game. It's such an insurance policy. What if somebody needs to buy a site? Like, I don't know, I don't understand this part. They can just throw that question around to those people. So that's good.
A really good one. I'll chime in on that is I'm in the group and I enjoy the group thoroughly, but there was one recently where someone was asking US tax structure questions. and about if you're buying a business from the US. Like I'm an Aussie, obviously I live in Australia and I pay Australian tax, but just there's a lot of complications with buying a US business and things that can come with it. And there was things I didn't even think to ask that other people were asking. And I was like, probably should have asked that. Probably should have thought of that. So I was like, even that insights on those level is probably another hidden benefit past the insurance policy kind of idea. But again, ways of avoiding mistakes that I just wouldn't have even seen.
Yeah, for sure. And so the US tax thing is crazy because you've got different states as well. We won't go into it here on the podcast, but I've learned myself personally a lot about that, a lot about the US tax. And there's just some things that you don't know what you don't know, but other people ask those questions and you get them put in front of you, and it's great. So, all right. Well, I guess I should come up with some of mine on my list. My first one is that I've learned and I've already known this for quite some time, but it was really reiterated to me by a lot of people that I've spoken to and stuff, is that quality over quantity. And I feel like this more so, not just in life, but in business as well, is that, especially website businesses, like a lot of people are trying to put out content on content on content and just come up with so much content. And I remember somebody was talking to me who wanted to start a podcast and like, oh, how do you come up with your podcast titles? I was like, I don't. I make sure I create something really, really good, and then it comes out organically because I know it's going to be valuable, rather than go, oh, I'm going to get a keyword and then structure things around that keyword to just fluff out some content and just put it out every single, like twice a week or 3 times or 4 times a week. It's not the amount of quantity, and consistency is a thing, but that's very different to quantity as well. But quality is more so, like, especially when you're building a blog post, you may be better off having one really good blog post that you post every 3 months, and you put that 3 months of work and effort into that actual post, because it's going to be a remarkable, share-worthy piece of content that's going to blow people out of the water with it. And you're going to get more links, you're going to get more traffic than you would if you're just putting fluff out there, consistently.
Isn't it interesting? I really think that is a great point that's applicable to so many levels of business, particularly this area from here. But into that, I'll bet that if people were to spend half the amount of quantity and double the amount of quality, and this applies to like articles, if you've said, podcasts, backlinks.
Links, it's huge, yeah.
Especially links, like even more, do even fewer links at a higher quality, I would think is definitely the trend. But it's amazing that when you can grasp that concept instead of trying to just go for volume, like that's where the results come from. They really, really do.
Yeah. So if you put the same amount of time and energy into doing one blog post, article, podcast, video, you're going to get, as much, if not more, traffic from that one than you would if you were to just fluff out 2.
You could even apply this to like businesses or websites in general. I think you would be better off buying one higher quality site than you would be trying to buy like 3 or 4 micro sites in the current environment too. Like if someone said, Charlie, here's $100,000, buy some websites, I'd probably buy one site for that. I wouldn't try and split it amongst 3 or anything. I think the quality game reigns supreme again. Yeah,
this is the mistake that I learned early in my journey. I thought, all right, if this site's making me X amount of money, I just need to times that amount of sites by however much I want to make, and just buy site on site on site on site. And it's something I learned quite early and realized that, wow, it was just taking my focus further away from actually allowing me to make my life easier and make more money with doing less.
I love that as an opener, Jared. I think that's a really great first point and something very applicable on multiple levels.
Yeah. Let's hear your second one, please.
All right. Number two. This comes from Mr. Buffett himself is the title of this one. It's called Circle of Competency. And there's an amazing documentary on Warren Buffett. I loved watching his documentary, and he uses a baseball analogy when he talks about it. But he's basically saying that, if he only takes swings at pitches that are suited to what he's great at, it's amazing how well he does, like how many home runs he can hit. But as soon as he starts taking things from outside of that, then his results become fairly average or dismal. So, Warren doesn't necessarily invest in a lot of like extreme tech or medical. He's got a lot of businesses he understands really, really well. Now, I'll be the first to say I got a little bit ambitious this year. I took on a project and a site I got involved in where it was new for me. So I'm quite strong in content, like very strong in content sites, but we expanded a little bit past that into some niches that we'd never done business in before. And in all honesty, I got overconfident. I got very, very overconfident in my ability and got a massive, massive serving of humble pie. So burnt quite a lot of money on a project. It was unfortunate. And I think it's very easy to do as you start to see success. You kind of think that, I've been successful here, so that must mean I'm going to be successful at that. And then on the reverse of that, going back to your first point, when we got rid of that project and just refocused on what we're already good at and kicking it up a gear, the returns have been drastically better than I would have got even if that first project would have succeeded.
Yeah, it's crazy. I see that this plays out in first-time investors as well, Charlie, is that when people come to buy a site, they're like, all right, I want to buy something that I know nothing about, and I find it hard to even wrap my head around how to understand it. But I feel that if it's complicated and I can wrap my head around it after time, I'll do really good with it. It's just not the case. I mean, you've got people... It's smarter, and this is what I say to my clients, people that are in the community, is like when you find out what business models they are, see what actually feels right for you and which one you understand the most. Maybe you've got no skills, but what do you understand most, the one right now, which business model, and then you'll take to that one a lot easier than going, all right, I'm overconfident, I'm just gonna, everybody says this is the best business model, I'm just gonna go for that one because it's a generic best business type business model to buy for my first business. And it's not often the case.
Well, I'll put it out there, Jared. All of the business models work.
Exactly.
It's just what I think I'm very suited to a certain type of business. And it's like, I'm strong in that, just like we all are as well. But I wouldn't necessarily think that that's the path for everyone. I think, I'll give you I'm terrible at drop shipping. I'll just say it. I shouldn't be allowed to drop ship. I should be banned. There should be how there's like gambling. Put my photo up on the, this guy can't gamble
on the wall.
Here.
Yeah. Don't let him in drop shipping.
Yeah. At Flipper and Empire Flippers, they should have my photo up. Do not sell drop ships side. But this is one of those things where it's like, but there's plenty of people killing it with that. So clearly it works. It's just not my path. And even in that, if I'd have picked niches in those things that I know about and understand, I might have a better chance. But again, circle of competency. All about that circle of competency.
Yeah. And I love that it comes from Warren Buffett. I'm going to bring up one of mine. Mine aren't in any particular order, but I'm going to bring up one of mine that's a Warren Buffett one as well. And I've said it many times on the podcast throughout 2019. And it's so relevant to what we're doing in buying and building businesses, because that's what Warren Buffett does. And he says it's better to buy a good business at a fair price rather than a fair business at a good price. So that's kind of, when I look at it, it links back into the first one. It's like a quality business. It's better to buy a quality business and pay a fair price for it rather than just, all right, I'm going to try and get a better deal. Where I see people, they're like, all right, I want to get the cheapest business I can get because that's all I can afford. And I'm like, well, sometimes you're better off just playing the patient game, saving up a little bit more money, or working out what sort of finance you can get to ensure that you buy something of quality, because it's going to make you more money in the long run. It's going to make your life easier. But when you buy something cheaper, it's actually going to cost you more money. Like this quote can link back into something that Donald Trump says, whether you like him or not. He says, sometimes the best investments are the ones we don't make.
Oh, I feel like you're just stabbing at me.
but I didn't mean it in that light, but yeah.
No, but to your point of I think back to the deal I was referring to in Circle of Competency.
Yeah.
And that is the deal I shouldn't have taken. And you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. The deal was irresistible. I got excited by the bargain, not the business itself. And I think if we're chasing cheap or chasing the deal over like good foundations and good fundamentals, it really, really does stand to hurt and hurt a lot there. So I'm thrilled Mr. Buffett's made 2 appearances on the list so far. He might make some more. I might even change one as we go here. But it certainly feels that, I, again, really agree with that point. And I think there's many levels of applying it, not really stop chasing cheap, I think is there. And then deal obsession, which I think is something that exists within this market as well.
Yeah, deal obsession is a huge thing. And I spoke to Michael Berezlavsky about this, and almost every single first-time investor gets emotional on their first investment. And doesn't matter if you bought 5 or 10 or however many you've bought, Charlie, or however many I bought, is we can still have our emotions get caught in, and it gets exciting and it gets fun, and we feel like we've done so well in other areas that, people get like to a point where like, I can rock this, and I've been caught out badly by that. So yeah, I want everybody to just realize to just stick to what circle of competency, Warren Buffett, like follow a lot of his principles. So he's made 2 appearances. What have you got for number 3, Charlie?
Well, number 3, I'm going to go with, I'm going to talk about team and hiring for my number 3. This has been something, I've hired a lot of people this year on my team. So just on one project alone, we've got 15 new people we've hired this year. So I've had to spend a lot of time looking at resumes, a lot of time testing people out. And there's this thing that gets said a lot in hiring, and I'm sure you've even heard this, is, like hire on attitude, train on skill. Is this really common saying? And I'm going to call it now. I think it's bullshit. I think it's a terrible saying, because often we can end up with people who are really enthusiastic at doing a terrible job. Mm-hmm. And I know that's
so true.
And recently I've made this shift where it's like, we've gone, right, we're really going to look for people that have got experience doing the thing we need done. So we're going to hire on the idea of like not only attitude, because attitude is important, but has experience doing the thing. And what's been phenomenal with that is that while we might spend a little bit more or hire someone more advanced, the speed in which we can get a return on that person is greatly enhanced. Like it's a much shorter onboarding cycle. It's a much shorter competency cycle. It's a much shorter training cycle. So we almost, I suppose, make up the cost difference really, really quickly. And I'm about growth. We're about growing quickly. And I just think you're kind of selling yourself short if you're bringing on to people that it's going to take 12 months to develop their skill, where it's like, this can be bang and they're on from today. So something I've taken away of like, if you want to go fast and you want to grow fast, hiring people who have done it and working with people who have done it, who also have great attitudes, really does make a difference.
Yeah. And if you look at this the same as you look at investing in websites, is that you want to minimize your risk, right? And so when you hire somebody based on like sheer excitement or willpower or what was the word that you used? On enthusiasm. Yeah. I mean, they can be enthusiastic about one part of the job, but the most important part, they're just very unenthusiastic about. And if you train them up and it costs you 3 months worth of training dollars, and the risk may be that they're not going to be disciplined enough to deal with the unenthusiasm, and you're not going to get a return on your investment there. And you have to go back to the drawing board and then risk again hiring somebody else and going through that same training period. So why not do it right the first time?
Absolutely. And you mentioned something there as well, is like, imagine you're buying a business. Let's say you're buying a pet business. You're buying a dog training dropshipping site. If you could hire
you're not buying
people,
dropshipping, right?
Yeah, I used an example I obviously don't own or can't buy or won't buy. But if I was buying that business and I could hire people that have worked in dropshipping and know the pet industry well, like how much quicker can we go? Like I'm almost mitigating risk and enhancing my chances of success like immensely, absolutely immensely.
Yeah, great. All right, so let's hit out another one from mine. I'm gonna come back into Similar to circle of competency, with one thing that I learned over 2019 in building my businesses has definitely been networking. And I consider myself super grateful for the people that I've met throughout 2019 and before, is that they have helped, like, people that are in a more advanced position than me, and it may be in a different type of business model. They can give me one little thing that they have learned that has helped me dramatically. And so like they say, your network is your net worth, right? And so for me, like, building relationships and networking with people in this space has helped me grow phenomenally. And, the podcast has certainly helped with the networking, but also, friends of friends and, a lot of the people that, Charlie, and I know is, we've all grown together because of our network. And it could be from one thing that I've learned that I may have spent 10 or 20 grand doing, and it helped me get great results in one area that could help somebody else as well. And I feel that the networking is really, really powerful. And I see that play out now in the community, in our Buying Online Businesses family. Is, we've got people doing 5, 6, and 7 figures that bought, sold, and growing businesses that are helping other people in the community as well.
You're preaching to the converted. I have no rebuttal of anything there, but it's just really fascinating. It's like, I think the deeper you go in business, the more seriously you start to take this as well. Like, I really personally put a lot of emphasis on my network as well. And I think that's why we've connected so well, is because we kind of believe in these abundant principles that really, really help us here. But man, I could go back in today in like how important networking is. Like, I have known some people for a long time, and I was falling into a situation where we were trying to work out. I won't reveal the secret project that is coming soon, Jared, because there's something very exciting coming here. But in essence, we're trying to get up to something we've never done before. And we were able to just get on a phone call with someone that was in our network who had done it. And it made the process so much easier. So who stands to have an astronomical effect on how far you're able to go in business and what you're able to get up to.
Yeah. Networking is something that I feel it ties into my next point as well. And I want you to bring up your point first, but networking ties into my next point, and because it's building relationships over time. So I'm giving you a little hint to the next one.
It's a bit of a teaser. All right. I'll give you my next one here. All right. I put this on my list because this has been something that has changed my world, in all honesty, when it's come to content. So I mentioned earlier, content has been a huge focus of where we've done well, but I'm going to say podcasting would be my point. I think it's number 4 for me I'm coming up to here. So previously, this is the first year I've gone really, really hard on podcasting. I've had podcasts in prior years and done previous things in podcasting, but this year we started Valor Media, which is a podcast media company, as well as doing more of our own shows, which we work on this show as well. And it has been an astronomical impact. Like, it has been the thing that has driven all our businesses and the front end of our businesses harder than anything else. So it's taken over from SEO, it's taken over from Facebook ads, it's taken over from social media. Like, legitimately, podcasting has become such a huge part of how we generate business online. And I was hopeful this would happen, but I didn't expect it would happen as quite impactfully as it has. And there's been all these little like knock-on effects that have come from it that we just weren't getting from running ads and doing other things. So like positioning. So like, because I'm podcasting a lot in the podcasting space, I'm starting to get recognition of the work we do there, and people are wanting to work with us because of that. Or I'm getting access to people because I've got a podcast. I'm able to go, hey, would you love to come on my show? And that's been a way for me to meet more people and network harder. And then this is one of my favorite. It's become our best backlink strategy. So, I mean, some people would know like what a skyscraper or cold outreach is for getting backlinks in the SEO industry. I must admit, I think that's gotten a bit saturated and it's quite hard to do. Some people do it very well, and if it's working for you, go for it. But for us, it didn't seem we were getting the ROI from it. And since we've been using the podcast to get our links, it's just been match made in heaven. It's easier to make content, easy to get links, just all around winning.
Well, it comes back to the quality over quantity as well, right? Like you can get the links, like you can get like 10 links from 10 different people by writing some posts and getting people to link to it or whatnot, or, you know, you link into them and sharing links or whatever it is, but you get one good podcast guest. Like I know that you've got some amazing podcast guests on your podcast, and that comes from your network as well. But those links are like far more valuable than the 10 little links that you may get. And it may cost you an hour of your time, which is something you love to do anyway, talking to these people, and then maybe a little bit of time, less time for your team in, you know, editing the podcasts and all that sort of stuff and publishing it. So the ROI on it is so much higher than those other SEO strategies. And we just had a little joke of like, that's my main SEO strategy is podcasting. And yeah, for anybody that is like doing podcasting or thinking of podcasting, like speak to Charlie, because not only the growth that I've seen from my podcast, which has been insane, but all the other people that I know that are working with you guys at Valor Media as well, Charlie, I've seen their growth and they're very, very excited for where it's to come from the future. So I agree. Podcasting is like, it's changed the way I'm not just growing my business, but I'm doing business. Like I tested it against YouTube. Like I make YouTube videos, same amount of YouTube videos go out the same amount of podcasts. And my podcast audience is much bigger than my YouTube audience because it's more consumable.
Isn't that interesting? You actually have a phenomenal testing ground because, I mean, the YouTube podcast comparison for you, I feel like your audience is on both a lot. I feel like a lot of people are in this space. I feel like a lot of people in the buying and building website space, we search for a lot of things on YouTube, a lot of tutorials, a lot of how-tos. There's a lot of great case studies and a lot of great channels. So you could be successful in either, but it just really seems like podcasting has been shining. It's been a really good thing there.
Yeah, for sure. Podcasting is a huge one. And it's like after speaking to some pretty well-known SEO experts, which are coming up on my podcast, and that other little exciting thing that we're talking about that's happening next year as well. We're talking about how people are getting shown up in the search engine, and podcasting is going to be a massive thing where, you know, you're going to get search results that'll be audio soon. And you're going to want to get your answers from podcasts because who's going to want to read things in the future?
It's already started.
Yeah.
I'm actually it's not great yet, the Google indexing and searchableness. So I won't pretend it's a strategy that I'm going to go all in on, but it's like it's well and truly on the way. It's started to be noticeable.
Yeah, and it's very exciting. And that's what I'm going to bring this into my next point.
Drum roll.
Yeah, which is long game, right? I'm podcasting for the long game because I know what's happening in the long term, and I want to iterate to everybody that's coming to buy a site or build a site is like figure out strategies that's going to help you, you know, grow for the long game. So if you may have to invest a little bit of money now, like, and not get a great ROI straight away, kind of like the marshmallow test, then, you know, it's normally worth it if you understand the strategy right, because you're going to get a higher return on your investment further in the future if you're going to play the long game in business.
This is a really interesting point. And I mean, I'll pose a question. It's like for most people when they're in business, we've all got problems, whether it's, you know, we want to make more money, whether it's time, whether it's freedom. And like often I think we can get consumed in like solving the immediate. It's just like, oh, if I could just get through this next little bit. And there's all these like second order consequences that we don't necessarily take into account if we were playing a long game. And like podcasting is a great example, not to keep chiming on about it, but SEO is a great example. Building traffic or building a business is a great example, where it's like if you are in this for the long game with that type of view, your decision making and return that can come from that is farly outweighed versus trying to like, how can I make $1 this week? like how much harder that game is to play and how much you lose in opportunities in short-term thinking is astronomical.
It's because you're always chasing. You're always trying to like, all right, cool. Like I'm going to do this and I'm going to get that. And then once that's gone, it's, what goes up must come down. Right. And how quickly you can earn money can also be how quickly you can lose it. Right. So yeah, I'd much prefer to be in business for the long game and not have stress or anxiety around like my decisions that I'm making. I'm like, is it going to be evergreen? Always going to be an evergreen decision, because that's going to allow me to stay top priority in the search engines, stay top priority as a good service, stay top priority as a good product, because I know I'm going to do the right thing by people in the long term, rather than just like, I need to get some money from people and then I'm going to get rich for a short amount of time. And you don't want that bad energy. You don't want that bad business karma.
So, I mean, I want to go a little bit deeper here. What would be some things people can do to start playing a longer game? How can they think about being long game focused?
That's a great question. So when it comes to buying a website, let's look at an evergreen site, right? When you're going to buy your first website business, let's not go, all right, I'm going to buy something because it's making money and it's a really good, flashy, fatty product now. And it's in an industry which is going to be really good for 1 year or 2 years max. Now, what happens is you're going to spend all that money and you may get 100% return on investment back in 1 to 2 years, hopefully. But after that, you're going to go back to square one.
So that's like those Segway skateboards or whatever they were last Christmas that were everywhere and now disappeared.
Yeah. And it could be, there's so many different types of these products, but what I want people to really understand is like, just always make decisions based on, is this going to be an evergreen business? Is this going to be an evergreen marketing strategy? Is this going to be an evergreen article? Is this going to be an evergreen, relationship that I'm going to build with somebody? All of those things.
That's really interesting. I think niche is absolutely a huge one. I love that you brought that up. Like, again, it's like, for instance, like parenting, a space I'm in. I don't think that's going anywhere. Yeah. People are going to keep having kids. So that's a good one to look at it. I think, there's so fishing or cycling, like so many niches that have stood the test of time that are probably or pets. I like pets as well. Outdoor activities, a lot of things like that I think are really, really strong. But then to move away from like very seasonal hobbyist stuff, like, I mean, I'll say Bitcoin, but that's proving it might end up evergreen at this point. It's certainly hanging around longer than I expected. But those Segway skateboards, tech decks, was there like that Pokemon Go game or something?
So. I remember when I was in primary school, they had Tamagotchis or something like that for about 6 months, and all my sister wanted was a Tamagotchi, and I was like, "What? Like this is just the craziest thing that I've heard of." But little or no, our parents went and spent all this money on something that's just going to get thrown in the bin.
But it seems so important at that time.
Exactly. So let's not get caught in that. So yeah, let's bring it back to is this your last point?
It is 0.5.
Wow, okay.
For me, 0.5. All right. So this is, I'm calling it white hat, which is an SEO term, but it applies to not just SEO. And something I've come to terms with in business is the idea that like shortcuts are not the way. They really, really aren't. And it's like, if you were going to do tactics and things that are maybe a little bit gray hat or a little bit black hat, like they're really just not worth it. Tying into long game there, it's like in the long run, they're actually more expensive than they're worth. And I'll use a couple of examples. We were doing a tactic on some of our sites with using a certain style of blog post to make sure it was appearing in the search snippet on Google. So you would have seen it. Sometimes you punch things into Google and it actually publishes a little bit of your article, give you the answer on the page with a link.
Yep.
So we were doing that to rank for harder terms without having to compete properly. And you know what? It was working well for about 3 months. And then Google did an update and we got slapped. We got slapped really, really hard. And I look at that now and go, when we copped that, I was like, wow, how much resources did we spend on that tactic? And we did get some returns. You know what? We probably didn't even lose money because we had some good rankings for a while. But when I think about that, it's like, well, I'm back to where I started with that particular strategy. We've got to redeploy things. I would have been so much better off playing the long game. And this is with everything. This is hiring. Like, you got to go. If I hired someone this year and I didn't go through the full process, or I was like half checking the references, or I didn't go white hat, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so to go all in on things and do them completely white hat, I think is something that has yielded a really great result.
It's so funny that all of our a majority of our little things that we've learned is very synergistic, if that's even a word, synergistic. Because
we'll talk to Webster's. We'll get them to add it in.
Yeah. I like the explanation of the little tactic. So you got principles, strategies, and tactics, right? Tactics are on the lower end. You've got strategies, but the principles are a lot higher. We like to work with principles and strategies much more than tactics, right, Charlie? And
Definitely.
so you've got this tactic that may work for a certain amount of time, but it's not long game. And what I want people to understand is, like, if you're going to just try to get ranked for a snippet, you may get some, like brand notability out of that, but most people don't click those snippets. So you don't get the traffic coming to your website anyway. So how you could change this into an evergreen or a long game, this is just an example, is that you could make that snippet really good, but it also not just be so much value, but be a teaser as well, where people have to click on that to ensure that you do get the traffic through to your site, because you don't want Google to make you irrelevant and just show little snippets. So you're doing all the work, giving information, but you get no kickback from it.
Even in that example, I look at it and go, like, you're absolutely spot on, by the way, Jared. But it's like, we shouldn't have chased it at all. We should have expanded on the words we're already ranking for. We should have made high value content that would have benefited our audience. Like, that would have yielded effort. We should have gone on podcasts and created bigger things and done joint ventures and so many other things that would have enhanced value, instead of being sneaky grey hat. It wasn't grey hat, but it was like, it's not exactly white hat either.
Yeah, just not evergreen, which is so much of like what I've done leading up to where I'm at now, is like all like just trying to get out of like survival mode to make sure we can grow. But it's an ever going battle. Like, I think I'll still probably be making mistakes in 20 years time, which I'll be correcting as well. So
yeah, I'm counting on it. I make mistakes daily. It's probably still going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I'll bring it back to my last point, which is number 5. And it's something that I have struggled with personally because I am such a good operator. I used to run quite a big team as a plumber. I used to make sure tasks would get done really, really well. But now it's me, like, I'm learning to become not so much of an operator, but more so of an investor, and thinking about strategy rather than trying to be tactic and get things done and stuff like that. And I think that's been one of the best things that I've learned through 2019, is trying to change over from being an investor or from being an operator to an investor / CEO, because I know as an operator, I can outsource these tasks. I can get other people to do that work, and I can work on the higher level principles and strategies, and the tactics can get done by somebody else who can be a VA as an operator. And the more time that I spend in that operator state and doing the numbers and pressing the keyboards and doing the work, the longer it's going to keep me in that position. And so when people are looking to go away and buy websites, I want them to understand, like, it's important that you understand the tasks, like what the VA is going to do in different types of marketing and content and, all these different types of strategies, but it's not as important as developing yourself into an investor / CEO so you can get better strategies, so you can grow in a different, get that hockey stick growth.
I think that has to be your point, your biggest point. Yeah. I think that has to be the most important one on this list. I think that smashes my entire list in importance for people to understand. Such a powerful point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so hard when we I just don't want people to feel bad when they're like, oh, wow, I've been an operator my whole life. Well, so have I. But that's because we haven't been taught to be a CEO or an investor. But now is the time. Like when you're coming to this space, start thinking as an investor or as a CEO, because that's what's going to help you yield a better life.
That's what's so attractive about this business model and concept of what you do here of buying and selling online businesses, and what the Bob community stands for and being around. Can I share a quick story?
Please do.
So this is, sit down kiddies, Papa Bear's going back a long time.
Campfire time.
Well, I'm coming up to my 10-year anniversary online, Jared.
Woo!
And I'm practically born on the internet now. I'm like a godfather. No, I'm joking. I feel like an old timer though. There's so many like vibrant young people, and I'm like, oh, am I that old bitter person in the corner now? Like,
I wouldn't say you're old and bitter. You've just you've just not built in with an iPhone in front of your screen, in front of your face since you're born, which is really good. I think that's an advantage.
And I still don't know what TikTok is fully or comprehend it, but we'll leave that for another episode.
Yes.
So a few years into my first business, so this is at this point I'd had an eBay business I'd built up and sold, and then I'd gotten into a marketing agency, and I'd never had a service type business before, and I was growing this thing pretty aggressively. We were seeing some really good success. At this point, I think I had about 8 or 9 staff. A few in Melbourne, a few overseas. Things were going really well, but I was absolutely burnt out to my core and stuck in that operator. Now, I used to joke to people that I ran an adult daycare center, right? That's what I used to tell people when they used to ask me, oh, what do you do? And I go, I actually run an adult daycare center. Because I really felt like my whole existence was like manage the team, fix a report from the clients, put out this fire, come back over here, go back to the team. Like it was just this inevitable loop of exhaustion from day up. I'd get up, that was my day, go to bed, get up, just rinse and repeat
victim
in the
mode.
grind.
You're in victim mode at the time because, I mean, it's only inevitable when you get so deep as an operator, right?
Well, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I was running some invisible story that, you build a business up and then somehow you get yourself out of it. Like, you just hire someone to replace you and then they have that shit quality life.
Yeah, in one hire, right?
Yeah. And then you just go to Italy and hang out on yachts and stuff.
Yeah.
You read the same book.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No idea that I was actually building a business in the complete wrong way, and what I was actually was self-employed. So I was building an extension of myself, not a company. I was building people to assist me, not building a business that was separate from me.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this, keep in mind. And then eventually what come across my desk is my beautiful wife bought a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And by Robert Kiyosaki, and I'll never forget, how you got memories that are embedded in you.
Yep.
I can like think back to this point, and I know the lighting, how I was feeling, where I was sitting. Like I can remember this so clearly because it was such an impactful moment for me.
Wow.
And I was sitting in bed, kind of half tilted up. It's a Sunday morning.
Wow.
Which I was like in a zone of, I'm so happy it's not a work day. My phone is not going nuts for this moment. Oh. And I've started reading this book, The Cash Flow Quadrant, and I realized that I was self-employed. I had never realized, I thought I was a business owner. And then I realized I was self-employed, and I threw that freaking book at the wall into a moment of rage. Because I felt like I'd been stabbed at my identity of who I was. But it was one of these moments where I gone, aha. And then it was like very painful to undo what I had built and very challenging to restart and build the business in the right way. But I did get there eventually. It just took me about 18 months to actually build a company instead of a self-employed vehicle. But that change was so important to make. And what annoys me a little bit is that, if I was a part of a community like yours, or I was with people who were thinking like this and could have just said, hey, idiot, no, you don't do that. Like, do it like this. You don't want to be in the business. Like how much time and energy I could have saved in doing it there. And I think this, seeding through all the points here and back into your own, the importance of who you spend time with, what your role likes and looks like, and how you should be behaving with the company, playing the long game, like it just all ties in to the emphasis of what you guys stand for in the Bob community, which I'm thrilled to be a part of. So that's my little story about like when I realized I was self-employed and an operator.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it doesn't have to be that way.
Wow, that's crazy. And I had done that in a part of my business as well. I think we're all kind of victims of it, but I think it's an important learning curve as well. And I love that you talked about the being such an operator, and I relate that back to website businesses in a way that I'm like, all right, cool. If somebody's going to buy a website business, they don't want to buy themselves a job. So if you were to have to sell this, it would have been harder to sell, or you wouldn't have got the level of money that you wanted for the business that you had perceived it was worth. So for everybody that's looking at buying a website business, if you stay in that operator mode and you build it up, and that's only going to build your hours as well, that you're so tied to the business, nobody's going to want to buy something where they're doing 30, 40 plus hours per week. They don't want to buy themselves a job. So you see these other businesses that, in the 6 to 7 figure range, they're businesses that are working without the CEO having to, do crazy hours in it. So that's something to really take note of for all the listeners, is that once you go from buying something from 30 to 50K or even 100K as an operator, it's very different when you want to sell it as something a bit bigger to get more value out of that business when you do sell it than what it was when you first bought it as an operator.
Absolutely. Those multiples change dramatically.
Yeah. Yeah. Charlie, wow. Awesome. That episode was amazing, Charlie. So was that story. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your points. Where can we find out more about what you're doing at Valor Media with the podcasting and everything else that you're doing as well?
Yeah, thank you so much for having Joe. I'm hoping to come back more regularly and get to be a part of this show, which I enjoy so much. Look, most of the things you can see from me at the moment are on valormedia.com. So that's VALHER.com. And you can see all our podcasting stuff there. But I'm also in your community. So if you are in the Bob community, just say hello or tag me. I'd love to hear from you guys and what you were getting up to. And then on social media, it's Charlie Valor. So you'll find me across there as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Charlie. And for everybody listening, we were talking about buying businesses and all that sort of stuff. Go away and check out my free resources at buyingonlinebusiness.com/free resources on how to do these due diligence and how to get, a website evaluator tool and all these free things that you need on your way to tackling and becoming better at these 5 top things that each of us had as well. So thanks again, Charlie. And thank you everybody for listening.